cut these up. Don't throw them away. Let me show you how you can turn these thrifted jeans that I got for $1 into something beautiful. So I use denim for everything. This is just a little clutch bag that I've made. This is a tie that I've made out of denim. I also make bucket hats out of denim. I also made this little bag out of denim. Also, you can take your denim scraps and create this beautiful makeover purse. I've also used it in my quilting bag projects. Okay. I also use them in these bags. And I also made shoes. You can use them for whatever you like. Okay, let's get started. I will show you how to debone and deconstruct your jeans that you either thrifted or you just have in your closet and you no longer want. Okay, let me show you what to do with them. Let's get started. And I also made this project bag using denim scraps. Let's get started. So now I'm going to show you what you're going to need to debone your jeans. You need your pair of jeans, of course. I will be using my electric scissors today because it just helps to go quickly with this project. If you only have a pair of regular scissors, like clothing scissors, then you can use these. I will link all of what I'm using in the description of this video because these are the things that I use that help me. You can also use a regular rotary cutter. If you want to measure your pieces, you can. So if you wanted to make 2x2 squares, after you cut and debone your jeans, you can actually use your rulers and measure your 2x2 squares, 4x4 squares, or whatever size you needed. If you needed strips, you can also do that as well. So let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do is I am going to cut up the inseam of the jean. So I'm just going to follow the inseam and I'm just going to cut it and cut all the way around on both sides. So that would be your first part. So after you cut that up, you should have something that looks like this. It should be open all the way through. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lay my jeans flat on one side. So one pant leg flat. And then I'm going to go straight across underneath the pocket, leaving about a 1/2 inch seam allowance underneath the pocket, just in case I want to use the pocket for another project. You want to try to get this part flat so that you can at least get an even cut. And sometimes the electric scissors are not powerful enough to go through the bulky seam, so I just use my scissors. So I have enough seam allowance just in case I want to use this part of my jeans. So this is one piece, and I'm just going to measure across so you can kind of see. I forgot to tell you the size of these jeans are a 7/8 junior. Okay, so the size of this part will be, you will get at least, let's say 15.5 inches of fabric wide, and then the length of this pants leg is at least 30.5 inches long. So that's a good piece of fabric, and you can leave this just like this and use it in a future project, or you can take this leg and cut them into your 2.5 by 2.5 strips. You can do your 2 by 2 squares, or whatever size squares you would like to have out of this fabric. Okay, so I'm just going to fold this up, and I just want to take off the hem of the jeans because I normally use that for other things in projects. So I'm just going to take my scissors first, start my cut, leave about my 1/2 inch from the hem. Just remember, if you want to use any piece from your jeans, leave you a seam allowance, okay? Leave a seam allowance. And so this is the hem of the pants. So I'll have that. I'm also going to take the hem or the seam from the side. I'm going to cut that off because you're going to use that in future projects. So now you can fold this up and put it to the side. We're going to do the same thing with this leg, and then I'll show you what to do with the next part. So for the next part, you're either going to need a seam ripper or a straight razor. I like to use the straight razor, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off the pocket. So you just want to take your straight razor and start cutting the threads. Just try not to cut the jean. So I'm going to use the seam ripper first so I can get a start. And then once I get my start, I just take my straight razor and start getting the threads out. To me, this goes a little quicker. My razor is kind of dull, so once you get a good start on the threads, you can start pulling them apart from the jeans. And so you have this perfect pocket that you can use for your next project. And I made this bow from the pocket. So you can use this pocket and make a bow, okay? So you can either cut your pocket and use this piece of your material just like this, or you can just cut your pocket out and it comes out looking like this. Excuse the oil stain, but you could put a patch over this and no one would ever know that you had a stain, that there was a stain on the pocket. Okay, so I'm going to go to the next part. The next part, we're going to cut out the waistband of the jeans, and I'm just going to use my electric scissors. First, I'm going to use my regular scissors so that I can get around the zipper. And then I'm going to cut underneath the loop. Okay, so now we should be able to use our electric scissors. And I'm going to try to keep the tag. So I'm just going to take my seam ripper and start getting the threads out. Sometimes you can just pull them, but sometimes they are fragile because the jeans are old or have been sitting in a closet somewhere. So just take your time and take off whatever it is you think you're going to need or use for your next project. See, I tore it. I can still use it. You can always still use the tag, even if you tear it a little bit. Let me see if I can use my straight razor to get the rest of it off. Oh. You kind of want to be more careful taking it off than I was, but if I glued this onto the pocket, I can cover that up with another piece of like the edging of my hem or something. So don't worry about that too much. Let's finish taking off the waistband. And I want to try to keep my zipper somewhat intact. Okay, so for the next part, which is the straps or the belt buckle loops, you can either cut them out or use your seam ripper to get all of the stitching out. I normally just cut them out because I want this to be quick. I don't want to have to seam rip everything. So I normally just go in between the fabric and clip and cut them out. And let me just get a close-up of how I'm putting the scissors inside. So you see this part right here is this is the loop and this is the fabric that they folded over. I'm going to put my scissors right here in the middle. just like that. And so it will leave this little piece on the fabric, which is totally fine. I feel like it just gives it dimension when you make something with it. And so now we have our belt loop that we can use in our next project. Now, you can also take off the top straps, and I normally do because I use the straps for decorative pieces, and I'll show you in a little bit up close and personal of one of my bags that I made, and I use these straps. But for now, I'm just going to leave them, and you can choose to either leave them or take them off when you deconstruct your thing. So with the zipper, I like to use the zipper. So I like to just leave seam allowance just so I can sew it in. And so now I have a zipper that I can use, and it's functional. And so we have that. So now we are at the front of the jeans. And the only thing that I do with the front of the jean is I just use this seam and I just cut straight across. Because you can use this whole pocket once you square it up, or leave it like this. You can use the whole pocket for a project. So now we have this, and I normally take this part off and then just sew it down so that the pocket is still usable. But being that I didn't cut the seam of this pocket, I'm just going to leave it just like this. So now you can use the top pocket and the bottom pocket. The only thing you have to do with this is kind of tack it down right here just to keep it together. But that's simple. That's a simple fix. This back side, I'm just going to go straight up and use this back pocket, or the illusion of a back pocket. You can choose to cut above the seam and just have the seam. All of this is totally up to you and what you're going to use the pieces for. But I'm going to leave mine just like this. So now, the pocket that we did not take off with the seam ripper, this is how I use this one. I just cut on the side. Leaving a seam allowance for my seams. So any seam that you take off, you at least want a seam allowance on one side or both sides, depending on what you're going to use them for. And so I'm going to cut across. And so I can use this pocket in a future project, and it already has a backing. So you can make a bag with just this one pocket. If you leave all of this on the pocket, you just flip this over, put another piece of fabric on the back, and close it in. You can either use a zipper or a magnetic strap. Magnetic snap, or whatever it is you choose to do with that. So you have that one, and then you'll have another front pocket, and you can cut all of this off, being that it's so short. These things are totally up to you. You can also leave it long, and I kind of cut this one on accident, so I would have to sew it up in order for this pocket to be functional. But it's okay because I don't need it. I can actually just sew the pocket like this, and I'll still be able to put things in it if I choose to. Okay, so let me just show you what we have so far, what you can get out of at least one pair of jeans. I normally try to get the biggest jeans that I can find at the thrift store. However, this pair was a junior section, and so I decided to just buy them because I wanted this dark denim. So you should have, this is a side seam from the pant. This is the pant leg. I just folded it in half, and you get about 15 and a half to 30 inches of fabric with this one pant leg. You get a front pocket. You get 2 hems from the bottom of your jeans. You get a back pocket that you can either take the pocket off and use it for something else and have the panel, which this is what I did with that one. So this was the back pocket. I took the seam ripper, I took it off, and I can either use this pocket for something else and use this piece of fabric for something else. So you get 2 for 1 if you do it this way. This is another pant leg. This is the inseam of the pants, the crotch of the pants. This is another front pocket. This is the zipper. This is the waistband. And don't forget, you can take these straps off of each belt loop and use those in future projects. You can also use the buttons in future projects if you take those off. It's just totally up to you. This is the logo patch from the pants, and this is the other hem for the jeans. So all of this from one pair of pants. And let me just show you real quick how I use those belt loops in my projects, and you can too. So with this bag that I covered with denim, you see, this is a belt loop. I use the belt loop here. I use the piece of the zipper here. I use the inseam of the pants right here. I made these look like belt loops just from the pieces of fabric. I used the button from the waistband. This is the seam of the jeans as well. And I took the belt loop with the waistband, with the pockets, and left all of this whole, right? And I just added another piece of material on top to make it look like it was 2 different pieces. But this pocket is functional, and you can also slip something in here, okay? Let me make sure that I don't miss anything. Okay. So you can do that. And then with this bag, I'm just going to show you real quick. So this bag, this is from a necktie in the middle. And then I use the zipper from the jeans. I also just took pieces of the jeans and just sporadically put them on the bag. And then I also took a pocket, made a second pocket, right? So the pocket came like this. I had the pocket like this one, which is the front. And then I added a piece of material on the back, which is my inner fabric, if you can see that. And then I sewed the pocket down like this, which created 2 pockets in one, and both of them are functional. So these are some of the things that you can do with your jean scrap after you debone them, okay? So if you found this video helpful, please consider to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll be back with more. So I just want to show you one last thing. I took the waistband and put this on the top of my tie. This is just a piece of the material, the fabric, the jean material. This is actually a belt loop that I sewed down on top of this piece of material. This is the pocket from a pair of the jeans, and it's functional. And this is another belt loop. So you can use these things in all of your projects if you would like. So don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch you on the next video. Peace.